We're pleased to be joined by Barracuda forward Dillon Hamaliuk. Hammer, first of all, thank you for the time. And how are things going?
Things are going good. The weather's nice here, so I got to soak up a little bit of sun. And yeah, I'm excited to join you here.
For those who are watching our program, you're wearing the Santa Cruz sweatshirt. I know you spend a little bit of time over on my side of the hill when you've got days off. But what have you made of just the Bay Area in a whole now that you've lived here for what's coming up on a year, and just the California lifestyle? It's a little different than maybe what you grew up in back in Alberta.
Oh yeah, definitely a little bit different. The weather's a whole lot nicer. Back home, it's like the winter is pretty cold. It gets like -30 there. And I don't know, here so far I've just like went to Santa Cruz, got to see like a little bit of what that's like by the ocean. And just recently I went out, did the 17-mile drive, went out by Pebble Beach and just kind of seen that area a little bit. And that was really cool. I really enjoyed that.
Are you much of a golfer? Is that something you enjoy when you're not playing?
Yeah, I do enjoy golfing when I have my own clubs, because when I use the rentals, it just doesn't cut it for me.
Yeah,
I guess
those
I
are
have a couple excuses.
those are built for guys like myself, who are like 5'11", 6 foot, not for guys like you are who are north of 6'3" ish. I think those clubs
Yeah,
are probably a little bit too short for you. Plus, as you said, it's a great excuse, right? Hey, I got the rental clubs. These aren't my clubs.
exactly. I pulled that one out a little bit.
Love it. So you're from Leduc, Alberta. It's just outside of Edmonton. What was life like growing up in Leduc?
Uh, it was good. I had all my minor hockey and stuff over there. Both me and my brother played minor hockey there. It's just like 15 minutes south of Edmonton, so like you're close to the big city and stuff. So I don't know. And then in the summers and whatnot, our family would like always go up north and go camping and fishing and whatnot. So that was fun.
Is it oil country? Is it agriculture? What is kind of driving the economy in that area?
Um, well, it's mainly oil, like in Alberta, and that's where like most of the jobs are for the most part. So there's Nisku that's like in the middle of Leduc and Edmonton, and that's where like most of the jobs are, and it's all like kind of oil based and uh like oil mat cleaning and like all that sort of stuff. So most of the jobs are over there, but if you're working on like the oil rig and stuff, you're way up north and you're gone for weeks on end. So good money in that, but you don't really want to be doing that.
So growing up in that area, were you a big Oilers fan as a kid?
Yeah, I like the Oilers a lot, but they weren't that great when I was growing up. So I was more so a Capitals fan. The Capitals were kind of my go-to team growing up. So
Was that because of Ovechkin? Who was or what was the driving force behind rooting for the Caps?
it was definitely Ovechkin.
What about
Definitely just seeing him take all those tees and scores on basically every single shot.
when you watch a
So,
guy like Alex Ovechkin, who's patented that one timer off the flank on the power play? Nobody wants to get in front of it, but he's like the only guy who can really do it, right? It's
yeah.
not something that you can necessarily try to do yourself. Do you just watch him in kind of awe, or have you ever tried to be one of those guys in your minor hockey where you're getting off on the flank and just trying to one-time pucks?
Well, I've tried it, but I haven't really executed many. So, I mean, it's more so of like an awe thing. Like, I don't know how he gets off. It's like he's always in that perfect spot. And it's like no goalie knows what to do when it's coming that fast towards him. It just seems to find its way through all the time. So,
We know that Canada and hockey, it's more of a lifestyle than a sport, and it's ingrained in the culture, and it seems inevitable if you're a young kid that you're going to play the sport at some point. How did you get into the sport, though? How were you introduced to hockey?
my dad introduced me to it when I was really young, probably 2, 3 years old. And he kind of engraved that culture into me. And we were always out playing and like public skates, playing tag, public skates, and even just like going out to the outdoor rinks in the winter time, even if it was -25, we were still making our way out there to to practice, and it was fun. Like that hockey's definitely a big impact on my life.
When was the moment, and maybe there wasn't just one time, but was it when you were on the frozen ponds or the outdoor rinks when you really realized this is like all I want to do? This is my favorite thing to do. And it was almost hard at times, maybe for your dad to drag you off of the ice because it was something that all of a sudden you would just fall in love with. It was a passion now.
Yeah. I don't know. Just like ever since I put the skates on, it was just always so much fun to me. And I still have so much fun playing it. And that's why I want to try and continue playing this for many more years and make a good career out of it. But yeah, my dad's definitely had a big impact on that. So yeah.
Your dad and your mom, of course, have supported your hockey career throughout. Your dad, Wes, your mom, Monica. Your dad, as you mentioned, we spoke a little bit off air, he's a mechanic. Your mom, an educational assistant. She works in the school system. So neither necessarily have a true hockey background in the sense that they aren't coaching and they aren't in management. But was it easy for them to get you and your siblings into hockey? Was that just a natural progression?
Yeah, I think for most families that are from where I'm from, that's probably the ideal sport for most of the kids. Like everybody wants their kid in hockey. But I don't know, some kids just don't really enjoy it, so they don't really end up going that route and they go to school and whatnot. But the majority of kids and people around, they just, once they strap on the skates and they want to play a pro sport, that's kind of what they go to, is professional hockey. So
your older brother, just a couple of years older, he played in the WHL just like yourself. Dalton is his name. You've got a younger sister, Danielle. So the 3 Ds, everybody with a D in their first letter of their name. I want to talk a little bit about your brother. He was the one who initially got into the WHL. Did you look up to him? Was he kind of the guy that you idolized? And fill us in a little bit on that relationship, having an older brother that's only really a couple of years older.
Oh yeah, he for sure paved the way for me. Like we were always so competitive and I always just wanted to be as good as him. But he was like a couple of years older, so it was always so hard for me to almost beat him in a sense. So he definitely like paved the way for me and showed me the ropes. And he still helps me out a lot, like in all my struggles and whatnot. And he's been a great impact on my hockey career.
So he is playing, is it Canadian college hockey that he's currently playing right now? Kind of fill us in on where his career is at.
Yeah. So, well, he finished his last year in the dub as a 20-year-old in Moose Jaw. And then he played 1 year at the U of A for the Golden Bears. And then he switched out of his program and went to Nate to go be a power engineer. So him and Nate, they ended up making it to the ACAC championship. So that's just I don't know, I think it's a different league than like the Golden Bears and stuff. So I think it's just like technology schools, basically. So they ended up winning the ACAC championship just recently, like maybe 4 days ago. So I was pretty pumped for him.
That's awesome. So do you guys, you mentioned that you still rely on him quite a bit. Do you guys talk about each other's games at all? Like, do you get a chance to catch any of his games? Has he caught any of your games? Do you guys go back and forth, try to help each other out?
Yeah, we go back and forth quite a bit just to see like how we could both improve each other's games. Sometimes I can't watch his because we have a game or whatnot, or sometimes he can't watch ours because he has a game. But now we got 10 games left, so now you can watch all of my games, right?
Yeah, you just got to keep an eye on what's going down on the final stretch. It's incredible how the season is already to this point where we're entering the final month. I want to go back to before your time as a professional, and that's when you joined the WHL, a draft pick of Seattle back in 2015, the Bantam Draft. So you joined an American team. Was that the first time that you'd come to the States? And what were you thinking? Obviously excited, but what were you thinking when Seattle drafted you and you realized, hey, I'm now going to head to the US?
Yeah, that was a crazy feeling. I think I went 111th, so I was a fairly late pick, I guess. And I don't know, I still think my brother paved my way at that point. Like he was already with Spokane and they had been watching me and whatnot. And my brother's a good player at the time. So I think teams saw and they're like, oh, well, they got his brother as well coming up, so maybe we could take a shot at him. And yeah, so my first camp, I went to Seattle at 15, and like playing against 20-year-olds, I thought that was the craziest thing because I ended up making main camp and whatnot. So just playing against all those bigger guys, I was kind of in awe, like playing against Ethan Bear and Kolazar, Barzal, all those guys. So that was crazy to see, and just to see how much those guys into it made me think about like how much further I could go with hockey. So
I want to ask you about that team. You guys won a WHL championship. You got to the Memorial Cup. You mentioned Matt Barzal, Islanders forward, Ethan Bear, who's now in Carolina, Keegan Kolesar, he's in Vegas. Alexander True, former Shark prospect, he's now in Seattle's organization. And Austin Strand, also on that team, who's in LA. So that was a loaded group. You guys, as I mentioned, won the WHL championship. That was your first year. What was that whole experience like, and what was it like playing with those guys and watching them firsthand?
Oh, it was crazy because I still like wasn't that developed. I was just a super young, small kid. I think I was maybe 5'9", 5'10", like just a small, skinny kid. And then just seeing these guys fly around and how much effort they put in, it was crazy to see. And even the coaching staff was awesome. Like they helped out a ton. Like there was always stuff to do after practice. They were always working with you. It was great for my development just to see how those guys played the game. It really helped me out a ton at that age.
Barzal, first round draft pick, of course, but he's become a superstar in the NHL. When you watched him firsthand still in junior, did you see those type of traits that you thought maybe this guy's going to be something special when he gets up to the highest level?
For sure. That guy was insane. Like making sauce passes like 6 feet high, and nobody could hit out of the air, and they were right on everybody's tape. And just how dynamic he is and how smooth of a skater he is. Like I'm surprised he didn't. Like, he's a one of a kind player for sure.
When you watched a guy like that, was it encouraging, uplifting? Did you feel inspired by that, or was it like, wow, this guy's pretty good, this level is pretty good, and am I good enough to play at this level? Which way did it kind of swing for you?
Well, it's kind of like, it was like, am I even meant to really be here? But I don't know, I was still super young. So I think that just kind of made me want to work even harder to like get to the same level that they're at. And I just, yeah, that's basically it. Like I just had to keep grinding away to eventually make it to their level.
So you mentioned that you were 5'9". Now you're 6'3". When did you hit your growth spurt? When did all of a sudden you sprout up into this, big power forward?
When I was probably when I was 15, I still tried that same word role and hitting and all that stuff. But I would say when I was 16, maybe started at 16 and kind of went through 17, 18, and then now here we are.
So was that when NHL scouts started to come around and there started to be a buzz around your game when you did hit that growth spurt?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once I put on a little bit of weight and got a little bit taller, and like I'm still pretty skinny, like I still feel like I have a little bit of filling out to do. So I still got a little bit of growth left in me.
Walk us through when you're in Seattle. You had great success. You guys won a WHL championship, but then you're traded to Kelowna. You had this crazy year. You're drafted, you're traded, and you suffered a pretty major knee injury. Walk us through that time. First, we'll start, I guess, with getting traded. Did it come a little bit out of the blue? And once you were traded to Kelowna, an organization who's had many players who have went on to the NHL, what were the thoughts about the trade? We'll start with that, and then we'll go through the injury and getting drafted.
Well, I didn't really know that I was going to get traded. It was in the off season, and then I just woke up to my phone ringing, and I answered it, and it was Bill LaForge, our GM in Seattle, and he said, yeah, like the Rockets wanted you and stuff, and like thanks for everything and whatnot. And then he just basically said, you're off to Kelowna. So I was like, all right. And I knew like some of the players there, like I played against Korzak, and Lee was also a part of the trade. Um, and Nolan Foote was there. Like I knew we were going to have a great team, and I knew they were hosting Memorial Cup, but that didn't end up going through because of COVID, but that was pretty crappy. And yeah, that's basically how that moment went.
So walk us through the knee injury. When did that go down? And what do you remember about the injury? What was kind of the toughest part about not only accepting it, but then realizing you've got to go through the process of recovery?
Well, the hardest part of it was probably after I got traded, or not got traded, after I got drafted to San Jose. And the doctors like checked it all out and stuff, and they were like, yeah, if you would have got a wire instead of like taking out your tendon with it, and like how they like can join it together with my MCL, I would have been out for like 4 weeks, and I was out for like 6 months, and I was like 3 months non-weight bearing with the surgery that I got. So my leg looked like a twig after, and there was just such a long recovery after that. So that was definitely the hardest part, and just not being able to play, that was brutal. Like that's all I wanted to do, and I couldn't even step foot on the leg for 3 months. So yeah.
Yeah, you had on top of the fact that you can't play, then you can't do the simplest of things too, right? Like enjoy yourself a little bit in the off season. So you have the knee injury, and that went into the draft year, right? So that
Yeah.
may have affected on where you thought you were going to get drafted. I'm sure your agent was saying, hey, you could go anywhere from 32 to whatever 65. There was kind of a range for you. You end up going in the second round of the Sharks, and I know you've said it was a little bit of a surprise on where you went. Was that really due to the fact that you were coming off a knee injury and you just didn't know how things were going to shake out?
Yeah, basically, well, once I got injured, like I was still confident in the fact I was going to get drafted. Like a lot of teams put interest and whatnot, but I just didn't really know when I would go, or if teams would have like if teams were skeptical about it, and like how I would recover from it. And I ended up going higher than I expected, which I was very pleased about. But I wish I would have ended up going to the draft. But I ended up sitting on my couch and being on my phone, and I heard my name get called. And that was a wild feeling.
So you didn't go to the draft, as you mentioned. Was that due mostly to the fact that you just didn't know where you were going to get selected? You didn't want to be sitting there if you were going to end up going later?
Yeah, I didn't know when I was going to go. Like my agent said, yeah, we have tickets if you want to go. And I was like, well, I don't think I'll be going the top 2 rounds. Like I don't really feel like I should go. And then sure enough, like something like that happens. And then I wish I would have went. So
Hey, you still got to enjoy it with your family. I think that's probably the most important part. Did you have any inkling that San Jose was a team that maybe the one that ends up calling your name? Did you have any conversations with them before?
yeah, I remember at the combine, I had a meeting with San Jose, and I walked into the room, and they had a couple clips of me, and they're asking me like what I was doing on some, and showing me some good stuff. So that was Berkey, I think Doug Jr. was in there, a couple other guys. But other than that meeting, I didn't really know that the Sharks were going to pick me. So it was kind of a little bit of a shock. Still exciting for sure.
When you go into a meeting like that, where you're basically stepping into a room with NHL brass, is it nerve-wracking? What are kind of the emotions? And when they ask you questions like that, it sounds like they're almost X's and O questions. Are you kind of overthinking what you want to say? Like what's the process leading into conversations like that?
Well, it's weird. Like you don't really know what to expect. Like you go into some interviews, and some people would just be like pretty laid back, just like ask about like what you do at home, and then other questions would be like asking more about hockey. Like you didn't really know what you were gonna walk into, and some, like I said, you'd go in there, they'd have a camera like right in front of your face, and they'd like be looking at what you're saying and how you're saying stuff. So it was a weird experience, but it was cool nonetheless.
We're talking to Barracuda forward Dillon Hamaliuk. Going back quickly to your junior career, for people here in California who are not overly familiar with the different towns in the WHL, what was the best environment that you played in during your time in the Western League?
Seattle was definitely the best. The fans there were crazy. And I'm sure anybody else in the US division that played in that rink would say the exact same. And it's just such a tough environment for other teams to come and play in, and more fun if you're the home team playing there. So that was probably the best place in the WHL, I'd say.
So when you were playing in Seattle, there was no NHL team, but the success I'm sure the Thunderbirds had made the NHL realize that this could be a very successful thing if they were to bring an NHL team to the city. Are you surprised at all that they have a National League team now? And surprised at all that the support has been as good as it has been?
Not really, no. I'm not really surprised that they got an NHL team, but like mainly most of the fans that were like Thunderbird fans were from Kent, which is like 20 minutes south of Seattle. So it was mainly like the small towns around there where we got most of our fans. So I feel like putting an NHL team in Seattle kind of brings in like people from all the surrounding areas and Seattle itself. So I think that's why they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I got to ask, you're a Canadian kid, but you lived in Seattle. So if you had to choose, are you going Tim Hortons or Starbucks?
Tim Hortons for sure.
Tim Hortons, you got to stick with what you're used to.
Yeah,
I love it.
No doubt.
Even when I go up to Canada, I've got to get the Tim Hortons because it's kind of, as we mentioned, hockey's a cultural experience. So is Tim Hortons. It kind of ties the two together. I want to talk about what you were doing as a kid beyond just hockey. Did you play multiple sports? Was there anything else that kind of drew your interest when it wasn't hockey season?
Well, I played soccer when I was really, really young. And then besides hockey, I just like played basketball recreationally, same as like baseball, like badminton, basically like all sports. So that was just like all recreationally. And yeah, that's basically what I did.
You seem to have really become close with Montana Onyebuchi. You guys are the same age, both in your rookie season, both out of the WHL, although I'm sure you were opponents to each other for quite a bit of time. He was playing in Everett, you were playing in Seattle, but fill us in a little bit on that relationship and how you guys have kind of built that friendship so far this year.
Yeah, I don't know how we did that because we were enemies both when I was in Seattle and when he was in Everett. Like we'd always go at it every single night. And then he got traded to Kamloops and I was still in Seattle at the time. And then off season came around and then I went to Kelowna and then he was in Kamloops. So another two rival teams. So it was a battle every single time when me and him played against each other. And then we had, I think the first time was in camp with the Sharks after, I think, this last season, and that was the first time I met him. And I don't know, he was a very outgoing guy, really nice guy. Like you wouldn't really expect that from, I don't know, like what I saw on the ice and whatnot. But yeah, we kind of just like grew from there, and we've been friends since.
It's always funny. The toughest guys tend to be the nicest away from the ice. It's just it's an interesting dynamic, but it makes sense though. You see a familiar face. Maybe it was an opponent or an enemy at one point, but it's a little easier to gravitate towards at least something that's familiar for you. You mentioned the fact that you like golf a little bit. We need to get you your own set of clubs down here in California. You have lots of chances to play golf, especially this time of year as the weather really starts to get pretty nice. But what other things do you like to do away from the rink when you're not playing?
I haven't really found too much stuff to do here. Like I love fishing and stuff, but I haven't really, I don't know, I'm sure I could go ocean fishing here, but I've not really too experienced with that kind of stuff. But back home, I love like going out fishing, hunting, hiking, basically anything outdoors, and just hanging out with friends and whatnot. But fishing's probably my second favorite thing other than hockey. So
with the impending off season, as we're going to date this interview a little bit, we're recording right before the final month of the season in late March now. With the impending off season, what does your off season tend to look like? Are you going back to your parents' house? Where are you training? You mentioned all the fun things you like to do kind of outdoors wise when you're back home, but what do you have in store for this upcoming summer?
Well, I'm kind of looking for a new personal trainer, like out of Edmonton. So I'll be staying at my parents' house. So kind of like look for a new place to train out of Edmonton. I got to talk to Potsy about that after this season's done, and maybe he's got some connections there. So maybe talk to him a little bit on where I can train, and then probably maybe stick in a little week vacation after the season sometime. And then I don't know, and then it's just back to work, back to the grind.
So if you could go anywhere, as I think we got somebody in the background here. Who is that?
It's Gruzy.
Gruzy, what's up, Gruzy? Jake McGrew stepping and popping into our conversation. If you could go anywhere vacation-wise, where are you going that you haven't been to yet? What's on the bucket list?
Turks and Caicos is really nice. The Maldives, really nice too. I don't know. I've never actually been on a vacation yet, so it's kind of on the bucket list to do this summer. I have to go on a vacation somewhere. Maybe Mexico because it's a little cheaper, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We've got to get Amber on vacation. That is the key. I truly believe that's a key to the next season. That's the key to the next season. You've got to recharge, refresh, reset, especially after the first year, because I see so much development with players from year 1 to 2. Maybe it's just the experience, the ability to reset, reflect, but you've got to get away a little bit too. You've got to unwind. Don't think about the game for like 2 weeks after the year ends. Then you can get back to all the hustle and bustle of it. We want to hear about the vacation when you wrap it up. Dillon Hamaliuk, we can't thank you enough for the time, man. It's been fun watching you. I know there's big things in store, but finish off strong. We look forward to seeing how you're able to finish up this year. But again, thank you for the time.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.